I flew 13 hours to surprise my fiancée for Thanksgiving after paying off her $58,000 mortgage. And she called security on me. She said, "Surprises are for people who fit here. Your kids don't." I said nothing. I just left without a word. And that night, I pressed one button and started something none of them saw coming. Security. She called security on me. Not just a security guard, the full team. Two guys in matching polo shirts with little earpieces, like I was trying to smuggle a bomb into a pottery barn. I was standing there in my best flannel shirt, holding a $340 bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite, with jet lag so severe I could feel my eyebrows vibrating. And one of the guards actually put his hand on my shoulder and said, very gently, "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to step outside." Like I was a minor disturbance at a wine tasting. Like I had not, 13 hours earlier, been on a flight from Edinburgh, Scotland. Having spent the last 4 months there setting up a second restaurant location, while simultaneously wiring $58,000 to pay off the mortgage on the house, I was apparently now being escorted away from. She looked at me from the doorway. Rebecca, my fiancée of 2.5 years, wearing that cashmere sweater I bought her in November. And she said, very quietly, so her family wouldn't hear, "Surprises are for people who fit here. Barry, your kids don't fit here." I said nothing. Not a single word. I just picked up the sunflowers, nodded at the security guards, like we were old colleagues, walked back to my rental car, and drove to a Holiday Inn Express 11 minutes away. And that night, I pressed one button on my phone. And I genuinely do not have enough words to explain what happened next. But I'm going to try. Let me back up. Because you need the full picture here. My name is Barry. Barry Hollenbach. I am 41 years old. I own 2, now 3, technically, restaurant locations in Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place where the menu has 12 items, and every single one of them is perfect. I have been in the restaurant industry since I was 19. I started as a dishwasher, became a line cook, became a sous chef, borrowed $60,000 from my mother, and opened my first place at 32. By 38, I was grossing about $1.4 million annually across both locations and sleeping an average of 5 hours a night, which, in the restaurant world, is considered luxurious. I have 2 kids, Theo, who is 11 and narrates his own life in the third person. Theo is choosing not to eat that. And Maggie, who is 8 and recently decided her permanent personality is going to be competitive sheep herding enthusiast, despite never having seen a sheep in person. Their mother and I divorced when Theo was 4. We are on respectful, civil terms, the kind that take years of therapy to achieve. The kids spend most of the year with me, summers with her. I met Rebecca at a food conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was presenting on farm-to-table sourcing. I was on a panel about small business scaling, and she had this way of talking about sustainable agriculture that made me feel like she was personally describing something I had always wanted. We dated long distance for 8 months. I flew to Charlotte every other weekend. Then I proposed. And somewhere between that proposal and this particular Thanksgiving, things started to shift. Slowly enough that I kept explaining it away. Rebecca's family lives in Charlotte. Her mother, Diane, is 63 and runs the family home like a small manicured kingdom. Her brother, Todd, is 38 and works in commercial real estate in the sense that he has a business card that says commercial real estate on it. Her sister, Pamela, is 35, lives in the guest cottage on the property, and has been figuring things out for approximately 4 years, which I learned means she mostly curates a lifestyle blog with 1,100 followers and occasionally texts me links to her posts, like I am a target audience. Rebecca had mentioned, casually, about 6 months after we got engaged, that she was having some financial trouble. The house, the one Diane had gifted her, had an outstanding mortgage balance of $58,000. The interest rate was uncomfortable. She was stretched thin. I listened. I thought about it for about 48 hours, and then I wired the money. Full amount. One transfer. I want to be clear that I did not do this expecting anything. I did it because I loved her, and I had the money, and it seemed like the right thing to do. But I will also tell you that in the 6 months that followed, not once Did any member of Rebecca's family, not Rebecca, not Diane, not Todd, not Pamela, with the lifestyle blog, mention it? Not a thank you at dinner, not a toast, not a text, not even a very small symbolic fruit basket. What did happen around month 3 of that silence was that Diane started referring to my kids as Barry's situation. How is Barry's situation settling in? She asked Rebecca on a phone call I was partly overhearing. Not Theo and Maggie. The situation. What also happened was that Thanksgiving got planned. Big family gathering at the Charlotte house. I was supposed to be in Edinburgh. The new restaurant opening was scheduled for November 21st. I told Rebecca this. She said, "That's okay. We'll celebrate when you're back." Perfectly reasonable. Except that when Thanksgiving actually arrived, I found out through a photo Pamela posted on her lifestyle blog, captioned "Grateful Hearts and Gathered Family," that there were 17 people at that table, including people I had never met, including, notably, a man named Greg, who appeared in 3 separate photos and was tagged as Rebecca's dear family friend in the caption. I was sitting alone in a serviced apartment in Edinburgh, eating a lukewarm Marks & Spencer turkey sandwich. When I saw that, I finished the sandwich. I thought about it. And then I called my operations manager, Cameron, who has worked with me for 6 years and is one of the most unflappable human beings alive. And I said, "Cameron, I need you to cover the floor Friday night. I'm flying home," he said. "Is everything okay?" I said, "Not entirely, but it's going to be extremely interesting." I landed in Charlotte 14 hours later, rented a car, bought the sunflowers, drove to the house. You know what happened next. I sat in the Holiday Inn parking lot for about 40 minutes. I was not crying. I was doing something much more specific than crying. I was making a list, because here is what you need to understand about me. I am not a dramatic person. I have never in 41 years made a scene. I was raised by a woman who believed that the loudest person in the room was always losing something, and that lesson went very deep. When things go wrong, I get quiet. I get organized. I get precise. And I had $58,000 worth of precise to work with. Now, before I tell you what I did, I need you to understand 2 things. First, I am a calm, reasonable person. What I did next was calm and reasonable, scaled appropriately to the situation, in my opinion. Second, I own a restaurant. I understand procurement. I understand supply chains. I understand logistics at a level that most people do not. This is relevant. This becomes extremely relevant. Okay, so here's the part of the story where I need you to understand something about me. I did not cancel the wire transfer. That money was gone, and I am not someone who does things halfway and then undoes them. What I did instead was, and I'm going to explain this very carefully, I called my vendor coordinator, a woman named Bettina, who has been sourcing specialty ingredients for my restaurants for 9 years, and who, God bless her, has never once asked me a question she didn't need the answer to. I said, "Bettina, I need to place a catering order for a Thanksgiving event. About 20 guests, full traditional spread, premium everything. I want the best turkey you can source, heritage breed, free range, the whole thing. Sides, desserts, bread, the works. Enough food for 20 people to genuinely be uncomfortable afterward." She said, "For which location?" I said, "No location. Delivery only. I'll give you an address." She said, "When do you need it?" I said, "Tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day, between noon and 2. There was a brief silence. Then, "You know that's technically today, right? It's 2 in the morning, Barry." I said, "Bettina." She said, "Address, here is what I did not tell Bettina. The delivery address was a food bank. The Margaret's Place Community Food Bank on Morrison Boulevard in Charlotte, which I had looked up while sitting in that parking lot and confirmed was open on Thanksgiving to receive large-scale food donations for their holiday service program. Full Thanksgiving dinner, premium, heritage breed turkey, all of it, in the name of the Hollenbach family, with gratitude, donated to feed people who had nowhere else to go on Thanksgiving." And then, and this is where it became, in my personal estimation, slightly unhinged. I called the catering coordinator at Margaret's Place, explained the donation, confirmed the delivery details, and mentioned casually that I also had a contact at the Charlotte Observer food section who sometimes covered community stories around the holidays. The coordinator said, "Oh, that's wonderful. We'd love the coverage." I said, "Great. I'll pass along your information." I texted my college roommate, Danny, who has been a food and lifestyle journalist at the Charlotte Observer for 11 years. And I said, "Danny, significant charitable Thanksgiving catering donation arriving at Margaret's Place tomorrow noon. Great human interest story. Heritage breed turkey. The whole thing. Family name is Hollenbach." Danny texted back immediately. "Are you okay?" I texted. "Deeply." He texted, "I'll send a photographer." I put my phone down, ordered a continental breakfast for the next morning, and slept for 6 hours in my Holiday Inn bed. Here is what I genuinely did not plan for. I knew the food would arrive. I knew Danny might write something. I expected, maybe, a small online article. A nice piece about community giving. I thought perhaps Rebecca might see it, understand the implication, and we would have a difficult but necessary conversation. I did not anticipate that the photographer Danny sent, a 24-year-old named Marcus, who is apparently very talented and also very enthusiastic, would take a photo of the turkey that was so cinematically beautiful that Danny's editor made it the front page of the Observer's Thanksgiving digital edition, above the fold with the headline, "Anonymous Columbus Restaurant's Surprise Thanksgiving Donation Feeds 340 in Charlotte." 340 people. Because Margaret's Place had a community service event that day, and the food stretched further than anyone expected, the article named the Hollenbach family. It did not name me specifically. It named the family. By 11:30 the next morning, Pamela had shared it on her lifestyle blog with the caption, "Incredible generosity in our city. Reminds us what the season is really about." She did not know. At 11:47, Todd texted me directly. "Hey man, did you see this Observer piece? Someone with your last name donated like a huge catering spread to a food bank, LOL. Weird coincidence?" I said, "Not a coincidence." There was a very long pause. Then, wait. Another pause. Wait. Then my phone started ringing. The first call was Todd. I let it go to voicemail. The second call was Rebecca. I let it go to voicemail. The third call was Diane. I picked up because I wanted to hear her voice specifically. She said, "Barry, I don't understand what's happening." I said, "Hi, Diane. Happy Thanksgiving." She said, are you telling me that was the food? The food we ordered. This is where I need to explain something. I did not know this. I found out on this phone call, in real time, Rebecca apparently had arranged a catering delivery for the family Thanksgiving dinner from a local catering company, which had called that morning to say there was a sourcing issue and the delivery would be delayed by 3 hours. So the family had been sitting in that house all morning waiting for their catering order, while 340 people at a food bank in Charlotte were eating a heritage breed turkey and side dishes that were, by all accounts, exceptional. I genuinely did not plan for that part. I said very calmly, "Diane, I think there may have been some confusion in the supply chain." She made a sound that I can only describe as a Diane-shaped implosion. By 1 p.m., the group chat, which I was still in, inexplicably, was fully operational. "Pamela, can someone explain what is happening? I am getting DMs about this article." Todd, "Barry donated the Thanksgiving food to a food bank instead of here, I think." Pamela, "He what?" Rebecca, "Everyone please stop messaging in here." Pamela, "I literally shared this article on my blog. I called it incredible generosity." Todd, "Okay, but was it not?" Pamela, Todd, "I'm just saying from a technical standpoint." Rebecca, "Barry, please call me." Someone named Aunt Carol, who I had met once at Easter. I saw the article, and I just want to say that whatever is happening, this family needs to talk to each other. Pamela, "Who told Aunt Carol?" Todd, "I called her. She asks about Barry every time I see her." Pamela, "Why?" Todd, "She says he has kind eyes." At this point, I was lying on my Holiday Inn bed, reading these messages with a level of serenity I had not felt in months. At 2:17 p.m., the article had been shared 412 times on Facebook. Pamela's blog post had gotten more engagement than anything she'd ever posted. including the one about her trip to Asheville. She texted me privately. I need you to know that I did not know it was you, and also that this is the most traffic my blog has ever gotten, and I am having very complicated feelings about that. I texted back, I think that's fair. Pamela, she texted. Are you okay? I said, I had a really good sleep, actually. She said, I'm glad. And then, after a pause, for what it's worth, she should not have called security. That was wrong. I told her that this morning. I stared at that text for a long time. The call I actually took was from my mother, Elaine, who is 68 years old, retired, lives in Dayton, and has been telling me quietly for 8 months that something about Rebecca's family wasn't sitting right with her. She called me at 3 p.m., and when I picked up, I could hear her TV in the background and the specific sound of her pouring coffee. She said, I saw the article. I said, Hi, Mom. She said, I just want to say one thing, and then I'll let you eat your dinner or whatever you're doing. I said, I'm eating a vending machine granola bar in a Holiday Inn in Charlotte. She was quiet for a second. Then, baby, you paid off that woman's house. You flew 13 hours. You brought sunflowers. I raised you so well, it is almost criminal what they did to you. She paused. Also, the turkey photo in the article is genuinely stunning. Marcus is very talented. I laughed. For the first time in about 36 hours, I actually laughed. She said, Come home when you're ready. Theo called me yesterday and said he wants to show you something about sheep herding he found on YouTube. Maggie has a whole presentation prepared. And that was it. That was the thing that cut through all of it. Rebecca and I spoke on the phone at 6 p.m. It was not a short conversation. She cried. I listened. She explained that her family had made her feel like my kids complicated things, like the engagement was moving too fast, like I didn't understand their world. She said she had been letting them shape her thinking for months without realizing how far it had gone. She said calling security had been impulsive and humiliating, and she knew it the second the guards showed up. I told her I heard all of that. I also told her that I had wired $58,000 to someone who then called security on me, and that regardless of where we went from here, I needed her to sit with the specific weight of that sequence of events. She said, I know. I said, I need some time. She said, I understand. I said, also, tell Pamela the blog traffic is going to drop back down tomorrow. It always does after a viral holiday piece. She shouldn't restructure her content strategy around it. Rebecca made a sound that was halfway between a sob and a laugh. Why are you like this? I said, I own restaurants. I understand data trends. I flew back to Columbus the next morning. Cameron picked me up from the airport. He handed me a coffee, looked at me for a long moment, and said, The Charlotte Observer article has been picked up by a food industry newsletter. We've gotten 14 catering inquiry calls at the Columbus locations since yesterday. I said, What? He said, Apparently, Hollenbach family Thanksgiving generosity is a thing now. People want to know if we do holiday catering packages. I stared out the windshield. He said, Do we do holiday catering packages? I said, We do now. Are Rebecca and I still engaged? No. We called it off in January after a series of conversations that were honest and painful and necessary. She's a good person who spent too long listening to the wrong voices. I think she knows that. I think she's working on it. Is the catering operation she was going to get, the one meant for 20 people on Thanksgiving, the reason my third restaurant location now has a full holiday catering division that booked $180,000 in orders for Christmas alone? I cannot confirm or deny that sequence of events officially. Did Pamela's lifestyle blog end up featuring a full written piece called The Thanksgiving That Changed How I See My Family, which she privately sent to me before publishing and which I told her was genuinely well written? Yes, that happened. She has 4,000 followers now. I think that's great. I mean that sincerely. Did Todd send me a text in February that just said, For what it's worth, I always liked Theo and Maggie. The sheep thing Maggie does is genuinely interesting. Yes, that also happened. Did Maggie finally see a real sheep? Because I took her and Theo to a farm sanctuary outside Columbus in March. And did she stand completely still in front of a sheep named Gerald for 4 full minutes in total reverent silence before turning to me and saying, "Dad, he's just like I imagined." Yes, that happened too. And I took a photo, and it is the lock screen on my phone, and it will remain there for the rest of my life. Here's what I know now that I didn't know 18 months ago. When you love people, you give. That's normal. That's human. But when you start explaining away how they receive it, that's the thing to watch. Not the giving, the explaining. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fight back or fall apart. Sometimes you press one button and you make sure that heritage breed turkey is exceptional enough that 340 strangers have the best Thanksgiving dinner of their year. And then you sleep. And then you go home to your kids. And you watch a sheep presentation. And you start again.